Hello and welcome to Exotic Gardening UK, Yorkshire Kris Weekly. We've had some brilliant weather in the last week, more like summer than autumn, with temperatures here I think got to about 25 degrees, 26 degrees, really nice and warm. And the plants have really appreciated the heat. It's kept the colour going, the flowers flowering, and we've still got the bananas growing taller and taller. And in this week's edition, we're just going to look at some of the star performers at this time of year. So we'll be looking at things like the ricinus and the cannas that I've not really shown you much of this year. And then I'll be getting back to tiling the greenhouse. Now here's a good view of one or two of the ricinus plants, castor oil plants that are grown from seed each spring, so in April. And they get to get bigger and bigger throughout the season. So these leaves are about 30, 40, 50 centimetres across now, the biggest ones, and they can get much bigger than this, and they can get to about 3 metres tall, something like that. And this is Amaranthus, and there's also the red form over there. Stunning coloration on those. They have much smaller leaves, but they get just as tall. You have the bluish forms as well, so there's quite a variety in colour and height of these. Obviously, as we all know, they're extremely poisonous if you eat these, but obviously you don't go around eating these plants. They are grown mainly at the back of the borders, just to stop people accidentally eating them. Obviously my family know not to eat them, and visitors hopefully won't start nibbling on the plants in the garden. But anyway, just so you know, they are pretty poisonous, but if you're sensible, it's fine to grow them in the garden, and they make a stunning addition to the exotic garden. Nice and easy to grow each spring. You can dot them about, nice and architectural leaves. And these are some medium-sized ones, they can, like I said, get a lot bigger. These are standing about 2 metres or so tall, and they can get quite a bit taller than this. And at the back of the border here, so I've not seen them in many videos. And then you've got the wonderful Tiphonia, orange Mexican sunflowers, and the Cleome in front. And here's another ricinus. This one's got red stems and huge leaves that we're getting up to about 50-60 centimetres across. This again is grown from seed each spring like the others that I've shown, and it's adding such drama to this part of the garden with the bananas either side. Quite sturdy, stood up to the winds pretty well as well, and it will flower, and it has sort of started to flower in some of the other ricinus plants. This one will start flowering probably in the next few weeks. Now, believe it or not, what you're looking at here are two types of begonia, but very different forms. On the left we have Begonia luxurians with its palmate leaves, and then to the right we have another unusual begonia, and this is Begonia fuchsioides. It's a very tender one, so this gets brought in winter, just dug up. It's not a huge plant, it has very small leaves and these very delicate whitish pink flowers. And it does really well as underplanting under much bigger plants, so it can handle quite deep shade. Here it's underneath the gingers and the tree ferns as well, but it's done really well from quite a small plant down here. Over the last few months it's really shot up to cover this space. And the Begonia luxurians, again, if you want the deepest green, it wants a bit of shade as well. It can do sort of sheltered, half shade, half sun, but I think it does better in shade as long as it's a warm position, so it can continue growing throughout summer. So that's a couple of unusual begonias that I like to grow in the garden. Here's another flowering shrub that's in the garden, completely hardy, and this is clerodendron, and it's got these pink flowers, and it's got quite big leaves, and it grows into sort of a bit of a straggly bush really. It grows up amongst here. It's quite tall, it's about 3 meters tall, maybe a bit taller, amongst the other plants. We've got the bamboos and the Trachycarpus fortunii here as well, and it grows well in the sort of shelter and shade of these plants, and flowers at this time of year. So it's just finished flowering overall. We've still got a few flower heads hanging on, and the butterflies also do love this plant. This is clerodendron. This is one of the smaller umbrella trees or Scheffleras, and this is Schefflera gracilis, and it's actually flowering now, and you might recognise this sort of structure of flowers from ivies, because they're very similar to ivies and fatsias, which they are sort of related to. And it's a very small growing one, about to a metre and a half tall, and it's flowering now, and if with any luck we might get seed of this one. And if we look at the foliage, let's go further down, you can see the foliage here. It's got the sort of Schefflera umbrella-like leaves, but quite squat and sort of fatter leaves here. Quite an interesting plant, and it's proven hardy so far, so we'll see how that goes. And that's in contrast to this Schefflera. This is rodendifolia. It's been nibbled away by a few insects, it looks like here. These are really nice umbrella-like leaves. Grows really well. Look at that. That is totally hardy. Well, hardy down to about -12, -15, I believe. And that's again sort of competing with the tree ferns and the bamboos in this area, but it gives nice evergreen structure to the garden. Here we have Amaranthus in the centre, with the plumes of sort of scarleted burgundy flowers, and the climber that's going all over the garden is a Spanish flag, Ipomoea lobata, with the multicoloured flowers starting off red into oranges, yellows and whites, and this is growing absolutely everywhere throughout the garden, over the palms, bananas and the annuals as well. And it will continue flowering well into November if we don't have any harsh frosts. Now this ugly thing is actually the Heniba banana, the onset Heniba, that I decapitated, what was it, a month ago now I think it was. And you can see in the centre we have got regrowth. So hopefully we'll get lots and lots of pups propagating from the cut. So we cut it into 4 sections, and we've got growth from the centre. Now the season's getting on a bit now, so we'll have to dig this up, bring it into the greenhouse and watch it divide and propagate over winter, and hopefully this time next year we should have at least 50 plants, maybe up to 100 plants from this division. Fingers crossed. Now this is one of the overwintered Solenstomen, or Coleus as it's more commonly known, and it's got a bit more unusual leaf. I'll have to double check the variety. I think it's called Wedding Train, and it overwintered well in the propagator as a little cutting that was no bigger than what I'm showing you here that I'm holding. And it is sort of time now to start taking these cuttings of plants like this and the Plectranthus as well. I try to leave it as late as possible, just before the first hint of frost, just so that I'm not overwintering bigger cuttings. I want them small so that I have space to overwinter lots of individual plants. I think this is a very unusual leaf form, and the colour is quite distinctive as well. Thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Gardening UK. Join me next week, we'll be doing more in the garden.